Hello and welcome to PTC Cast, episode 23. I'm Alex Martin. This is Chris Saldana. Today we go a little bit into the online coaching process and what it takes to be successful throughout that process in your own fitness and wellness journey. If you guys like this podcast, be sure to give us a little 5-star rating on Spotify or drop a like on YouTube. It's brought to you by ProgressThroughChange.com, where you can get your 4 Easy Habits for Fat Loss guide. It takes like 10 seconds to sign up, and it'll basically give you the foundations you need to transform your body. Yes. Worked for Chris, worked for me, works for literally every single one of my clients. Yeah, so, but enjoy the podcast. Nobody can even see my toes right now. Nobody has any idea that I'm barefoot right now in my own home.
What if I leave this in the podcast?
In my own home. I hope you do. I like real. I don't have to impress anybody.
Okay.
We look square to me, I think. If I'm chilling back here, you think that's cool?
Yeah. What's up, brother?
Not much, man. I've had a busy morning so far writing online client updates. Signed 3 new ones this week, so we've been busy, man. One new one last week, too, and everybody's going smoothly, which has been nice. So,
how do you like, or what's the difference in results when it comes to, online clients and in personal?
Online clients have to be on top of their homework, man.
Gotcha.
They got to communicate with me. They got to do their workouts on their own. They got to do their food journals. They got to check their own boxes. Whereas like with in-person clients, same thing. You got to do your homework. But if you're seeing me twice a week, there's a little more like, I know at least you're going to have 2 solid workouts that week. And I'm going to have a good idea of where your head's at. I'm going to have a better idea of how you're doing emotionally. I'm going to have a better idea of how your nutrition is going, more so than just, because sometimes people aren't even doing their food journals. And I'm like, nah, man, that's a big step here, So that's an important part of the process. So as far as like what's required of them, I'm sorry, what was your question? What's required of them or what the results are like?
What the difference in results are.
The difference in results. So I would say with in-person clients, I can kind of like, this might be like a bad way to say it, but I can kind of force results on them.
Yeah.
As far as like, okay, we're going to train hard. And then as long as you can just do some little things for me, we can make this happen. Cause I know you're getting at least 2, challenging workouts a week. Whereas with online coaching clients, it's really dependent upon, how, number 1, how well the person communicates with me, but number 2, how well they can push themselves on their own. Because, at the end of the day, I'm telling them, weights, reps, things like that, different intensity techniques. But, if I say, I want as many push-ups as possible with good form, well, maybe they had 15, but they stopped at 12 or they stopped at 11 because they thought that's all they had.
And in person, you'd be able to like
in person I can call them on that shit. I can be like, no, you had a few more in you there.
Yeah,
let's
get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Get those few more.
Mm-hmm. And also keeping in mind, man, that it's not perfect. It's not a perfect science. So sometimes someone might be stronger on that day. They might be weaker on that day. So maybe I ask for 10 to 15 from someone during a set, and then they hit 15, and it's like, oh, you got like 5 or 10 more in you. Let me crank it up a little bit. Let's see if we can push this a little harder. So within persons, I can call a little bit more, I can call some audibles, but online has been very successful for the people who, number 1, can do their homework, and number 2, have crazy schedules. So, if you're somebody who needs to work out at 5 a.m. or 9 p.m., sorry, but I'm not training yet that time. So, if you have your workouts written and ready to go and you know how to communicate with me, it's definitely a viable option. So
you're like more involved when it comes to the personal training, just because you're in person.
And that's what I would say. Yeah, it's more like I can just kind of force it, and that sounds bad, but force it as far as like I know you're getting 2 really solid workouts.
Yeah, you can be
week.
accountable for them. But when it comes to the online coaching, it's kind of like you said, like they have to.
They got to be willing to push the envelope on their own,
and like follow the program and do what they have to do,
and
not lie to you.
Yeah,
most important,
and that's a big part too. And something that's been super interesting with the online clients, and whenever I first started online coaching, 3 or 4 years ago now, I always had thought that it was more for the intermediates and the advanced people, just because, it's the people that, maybe they have a little bit more practice under their belt. They're a little bit more consistent with their habits. But a lot of like hyper beginners have been super successful because, number 1, I cut out all the fluff for everybody, at least in those first couple of weeks, because I'm trying to be sure that we're just doing the most important things and we're creating a stable foundation. But the beginners have had a lot of success if they can do their homework.
Yeah.
Which has been really cool to see, because I've honestly had some people that I would consider closer to that intermediate advanced. And, I'm just kind of throwing those terms around.
Yeah.
I more so mean like how consistent you are in your own training and your health, all other things regardless. But I've had some really successful beginners because they want it more and they do their homework.
And if you want it more, then like you said, you're going to do your homework, whether you're told to do it or not. Just because, you want it more, you're going to find a way.
Yeah. It's like anything, man. It's what you make out of it, So I can give you the roadmap all day, but at the end of the day, you're driving the car, So that's the biggest thing there.
How does, like the onboarding process work for like, in-person personal training and, online coaching, since you're not, in person with them and, walking them through what you would want them to do.
Right. It's pretty much the same across the board, because I need to know all the same things, whether that's give me health history, give me, what you're used to in the gym, if you're used to anything in the gym, give me a normal day of eating as honestly as possible. So everybody kind of has to answer the same questions from me. So I would say it's relatively the same. Just via online coaching, it's usually over the phone, whereas personal training, it's going to be in person. But
okay.
I would say, as far as like the information I need to get started and to create a plan for that person, it's the same.
Dang,
it's 100% the same. Yeah.
I've been thinking about starting online coaching
really
lately. Yeah, because I post a lot about my programming and my nutritional program and all of that stuff, and just to help people out. And a lot of people have been reaching out to me asking, if I'm going to release something or if I can train them. And, I tell them, that I've done it in the past, but I haven't really, I'm not an expert at doing it, but I don't know, man, it's seeming like more and more, cool to do.
Yeah.
Or at least for me, I'm like, maybe I'll try that. And most importantly, I really want to try nutritional coaching.
Really?
Do you do that with your online coaching clients, or is it just training?
No, it's not just training. So as far as nutrition goes, I have a very step-by-step process that I take everybody through, even if there's someone that's used to tracking calories and macronutrients. But week 1 is a food journal, man. So week 1 is like, and when I say food journal, and I know I've said food journal on this podcast probably at least 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But when I say food journal, it's literally as simple as I just want them to write down everything they eat, ideally maybe with a time around it and quantities around it. But we'll start there, and then that following week we'll start tracking calories, depending on how that goes. That following week we'll start tracking protein minimums. The following week we'll start tracking carbohydrate maximums, and until we get to a point where they're tracking macronutrients. So it's kind of like this progression of, first we're crawling, and then we're walking, and then we're running, and then we're sprinting, right? Gotcha. So it's kind of like this slow buildup as far as the nutritional side goes. And so I try to describe it to everyone. It's like we're just kind of working with this puzzle, or you're budgeting, right? You're just trying to figure out, okay, how do I hit my calories with these numbers? How do I hit my protein with these numbers? How do I stay under my carbs or at my carbs with these numbers? And because we introduce one variable at a time, it's a lot easier to bite off than me to say, all right, Chris, I want you to eat 2,400 calories a day, 300 grams of protein, 200 grams of carbohydrates, and 100 grams of fats with X, Y, and Z involved in it. So it's just...
And I'm like, what's a
it's
protein?
A little, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just a little... Yeah, exactly, man. So it's a little... it's a little more manageable when you chop it down into steps like that. But as far as online coaching goes for you, man, I've worked with a handful of powerlifters. And what I found mainly with them is it's a lot of, number one, trying to get them to do their prep work before.
Oh my God. Yes.
I'm like, look, man, you're deadlifting. At least give me one set of RDLs and one set of dead bugs beforehand, man. Man. Let's do some prep stuff. So for powerlifters, it's an interesting one because it's like, okay, they're calling themselves a powerlifter, so they like lifting heavy and they like squatting, benching, and deadlifting. That's already a given.
Yeah.
It's like, can you get them to do their cardio? Can you get them to do their prep stuff? Can you get them to do their accessories? Can you get them to food journal? Exactly.
It's a big ass bundle, and that's what I'm kind of like. That's why I haven't done it, is because one, it's like, well, will the athlete even follow? What I tell them to do?
Yeah,
I think so too. Now, but then two, it's like, okay, well, how the hell do I ground training, nutrition, recovery,
anything? You build a process around it.
Exactly, and that's what I haven't done is build a process. So now that I'm like, well, this may be kind of fun. Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, last night I reached out to this dude, his name is Skylar Brandt. We've talked about him on the podcast actually before. He's the official strongest teen that ever lived.
Okay,
and,
yeah.
he asked me if I could do some nutrition for him, just because like in the weight room, he doesn't feel like he's strong, but he doesn't feel, very full and strong in the weight room, which that can affect your confidence. If you're not feeling strong, even though you are, then that's gonna affect your lifts, and eventually you'll doubt yourself.
Well, and if he feels like that too, I'm sure his strength tapers off pretty quickly in training.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure he gets a couple of solid sets, and then out of nowhere he loses it.
Exactly. So we have to prioritize that. We have to prioritize recovery outside of the gym.
Yeah,
and then
that's a big one too, man.
Yes,
like,
dude,
you would not believe how many people tell me they sleep less than 7 hours a night.
Oh my god!
And I'm like, man, we got to at least get you to a baseline there. It's like what's funny, man, is like I've had some people where, and not to get on a tangent, but I've had some people where, man, it's like I'm almost begging them to sleep a little bit more, but they're like, no, I'm gonna wake up half an hour earlier so I can do cardio because that's more important. Yeah, exactly. But I'm sorry, go on.
No,
so yeah, it's just it's hard to get people to do the. I don't want to say the
prerequisites.
Prerequisites. That's the perfect way to put it.
You can have the perfect training, the perfect intensity and whatever all the stuff that people see on Instagram and whatnot. But if you don't have all the things that you need to do beforehand, like exactly what you're eating, how exactly you're recovering, your warm-ups, maybe your technique, or all of those things that come before the actual lifting, then it's kind of you're just fighting an uphill battle, honestly.
Don't let me forget to come back to the Skylar topic, but I feel like that kind of happens with a lot of things, right? It's like we see on Instagram the stage pictures, but we don't see the hours of cardio that happen every day. Yeah. Or we see like the 800-pound deadlift, but we don't see the food logs that came with that, or the prioritization of sleep that comes with that. So
or
it's
the
interesting.
6-10 years of training that comes with that.
Or we see the multimillionaire that has all the crazy cars and the crazy house, but we don't see the 100 cold calls he used to make every single day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where we get so attached to, I don't even want to say the end goal, but the externalization, the thing that you can share with people and show everybody how cool you are and show everybody that you're doing it, versus like the daily things, the get up, walk every morning, the get up, start your food journal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the get to bed on time. Like it's the not sexy stuff that gets you the results.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't know who is the person who said this, but I completely think that it's true. If you have all of that stuff set up, then honestly, any program is going to work for you.
Yeah.
Like, programs are kind of, for the tippy top, like, if you have, the best training program, but you can't even fucking recover from it, and you're sore, every time you go in the weight room and you're underperforming, well, guess what? That program is useless.
Yeah. And it's so cliche to say, man, but it's like, if you build a house without a foundation, it will fall. It will fall. It will shuffle. It will fall. It won't stand. Like, you have to have your foundations and everything. But
exactly.
To circle back to the Skylar thing, that would be an interesting one for you, because you're someone who is at the peak of the powerlifting game, and he is obviously someone who is at the peak of the powerlifting game. So y'all would kind of be on the same page where, number one, hopefully he would respect everything you have to say and take it seriously and know that you are fully invested in him because you've been at that highest level. So, because there's some coaches out there who maybe have done it on their own, just not to that high level, but being at relatively the equal pace, this equal space, it might be a little bit more like, well, number one, you already have someone who's a top tier athlete, so I'm sure he's going to be committed to the process.
Exactly.
But I also think like he's going to be even more likely to respect your word because you're someone who's doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Like on my IG stories and YouTube channel, I post what I've been doing with my nutrition and dieting and how it's been making me feel.
Right. And
the performance increases that it has, and it's seriously been a night and day difference. Yeah. Before, or when I lost all my weight and I was, blacking in and out in the gym, like I told you, and you told me to up those calories. Well, I've still been blacking in and out up until like late December. And that was when I started this, or my methodology or I guess my approach to nutrition now. And ever since that I started this new approach, like I've been top tier performance in the gym every single day, which is really important to me. And not only that, like throughout life, I don't fart anymore. I don't have explosive diarrhea anymore. Like I don't bloat anymore. Like all of that, it may seem funny, but you may not realize, like you may think that that's normal, to have those things.
Like, protein fart.
But it's seriously not. Like if you're having those things, then, there's some kind of issue. And I'm proud to say that, through a bunch of experimenting and just committing to, my new diet. And I'm not saying that this will work specifically for everyone, has completely changed the way that I feel in life and in training. And I think that, he sees that, and, he wants a part of that. And, I hope that I can bring that to him. And I know that it doesn't work, or like what works for me won't work for every single person. So I've been trying to, talk to him about, like his restrictions, what he currently eats, and, obviously the results that he wants to get from this, and bringing in, the type of foods that I think would be great, and then the type of meals. Like right now, everything I'm providing him with, like almost a framework, and then I'm gonna provide him with suggestions inside of that framework, just to see how it works for a little bit. And then if he does follow those suggestions, then we can run with it more, and I can be more in control. Just because I need to see how he's reacting.
And you need to start in a place that he can realistically fit it into his lifestyle. If you were to try to hit him with some crazy 180 of like specific food choices and meal timing and things that are like way out of the norm for him, like it's going to be overload for anybody.
Like that's ridiculous. Like right now, I'm eating on my training days, I'm eating 7 to 8 meals, and about 3 of them are snacks, but I still count them as a meal. If he eats, let's say 3 meals, who am I to tell him, well, hey,
you got to do 8.
You need a more than double, the amount of meals that you eat. Well, his stomach's not going to be adjusted to that. Or it may be, but it also may not. So, I want to make sure that I figure that stuff out.
Or maybe he's used to going into training, 4 hours after eating versus an hour and a half after eating.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of
just the little things, man.
There's a lot of little variables that come there, but it is interesting that like the quicker you become consistent with things, the easier you can pick out these variables, right? So I have a client who I'm gonna call her Kim just to respect her privacy, but she's really locked it down recently and has really made some serious change in her weigh-ins. And it was interesting because we stalled out for a second. But again, she's been wildly consistent. And even during the stall, she didn't stop food journaling, didn't stop walking, didn't stop training, none of that. Held tight to it. And because she had been so consistent with all these things, we were able to peel through these food journals. And I was like, oh, we found a protein cookie she was eating, causing gas, bloating, discomfort, all these other things. And it's like, okay, we can pull that sucker right out. Boom, weight dropped right down. And it's like, as soon as, so number one, you be consistent with that. Number 2, it's going to aid in performance. And number 3, when you keep those things all in check and all in line, it's so much easier to make adjustments and to move your pieces around. Whether that means pulling a food out, adding a food in, pulling cardio, adding a different training session. I mean, whatever that means, but it's like you have to be consistent so that way when you make changes, you can see what that change does. If you're inconsistent, you don't know what your change means because because instead of changing 1 or 2 variables, you've changed 10 variables because you...
And then which one was the cause of, your problem? You have literally no idea.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to approach it like, without sounding corny, like literally the scientific method, right? You got to have one variable or that you're playing by, and you're watching how it changes things.
And that was the cool thing about my change in nutrition is I started being able to do that. And once it got to the point where all of my foods weren't causing me any problems, well, I started noticing that maybe the amounts of foods were causing me problems. Like, for example, sweet potato. I now know that I can have a like medium-sized portion of sweet potatoes and be completely fine. But if I have a large-sized portion of sweet potatoes, then I'm going to be uncomfortable and I'm going to have bloating. And like those, being able to control those little intricacies is so freaking awesome because you know exactly what you need to do and exactly what you don't need to do. And it just gives you like better decision-making power, because it's a lot easier to make. Instead of having a bunch of shit that you have to like sift through and then making a half-assed decision because you think that,
Yeah.
you know, that
you have a hunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a hunch, which what does that even mean?
Right.
You know?
Right. So when you have those routines down, you have that consistency down, you can find things a little bit easier. And so again, to put that all together in a bow, it's like the online clients that have definitely had the most success are just the ones that communicate with me and do their homework, man. Homework meaning, you know, put your weights in, put your weigh-ins in, do your food journal, all those things. But it's been interesting. Like, it's been so cool to watch someone who's never been in the gym before literally change their body through the online coaching process. And it's literally like, you know, that was someone who knew it was going to take consistency and routine, gave them the roadmap, check in with them twice a week, and they've made it happen.
Yeah.
So it's super cool. So it's one of those things where it's like you give someone the tools and you see what they do with them.
Yeah.
You know,
it's all up to them.
100%. And of course, I'm always here to bounce things off of, or, you know, come up with meal ideas,
Yeah, that's
or
the feedback.
You know, exactly. Yeah. And there's always obviously tons of that, but there's some people who it's like, they don't even want to do that part. And I'm like, man, you know, and I've had in-person clients like that too before. Sometimes people think if they just throw money at problems, it'll make them disappear.
No,
and that's
effort.
that's not how this works,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. And so I always try to explain that to everybody at the beginning of the online coaching process. It's like, be ready to communicate and do your homework. And to be honest, like, that doesn't take a ton of time. It's just the consistency and the routine of doing it.
Yeah,
you know?
like it takes a couple minutes to, you know, fill out the food journal and
Yeah.
stuff. But, you know, doing that every single day, you know, however many times a day, that takes just routine and
set an alarm in your
consistency.
phone, set a certain time at every
Just
day
make it
when you do it.
easier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, find a way to make it easy for yourself, you know?
MyFitnessPal.
So
Yeah.
MyFitnessPal for sure. But yeah, man. And for things like that, like, especially when I'm first trying to get a habit or routine under my belt, it's all about alarms or, like, you know, setting blocks of time for them. So it's like, all right, well, if I know I need to food journal everything I'm eating, as soon as I'm about to sit down and eat it, right before I eat it, I track it. Or as soon as I finish eating it, I track it. You know what I mean? Just whatever that means to you.
It's almost like you pre-make that decision for you so that you don't have to have that conflict in your head.
That's it right there. Yeah. Yeah. That's it right there. Yep. And so if you're going out to eat, whatever, pre-make that decision. If you're, you know what I mean? If you're going throughout your day and you know it's going to be a weird day, pre-make your decisions.
Yeah.
Like, don't force yourself to think in the moment. Give yourself some grace there and, you know, do yourself a favor and think ahead.
Yeah, seriously. So
Yeah. Agreed, man. So the online coaching process has been super cool, and I'm excited to continue to expand on it and refine it and make it even better. So,
bro.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. We can wrap this one up there.
Yes, sir.
All right.